I live in my godmother's house, and the system makes me the king of the sea. Chapter 21, Su Wan in hot pants. For the next 2 days, Fang Tian completely stopped acting like a human being. Of course, the first rule of survival he learned in the army in his past life was, you can do bad things, but you must absolutely never do them right on your own doorstep. Hit and run, move to a new place each time, the fewer traces left, the safer you are. So, he executed this principle precisely. On Monday, he took the high-speed rail to Haizhu. On Tuesday, he switched to Huaiyan. Both cities were far away from Gusu, ensuring no one would come knocking on his door to settle scores. Fang Tian even specially wore a pair of non-prescription glasses and styled his hair in a different parting, achieving basic physical camouflage. The results of the 2 days were quite fruitful, 27 attribute points plus a few tens of thousands in compensation. But the scenes also left him with not insignificant trauma. To ensure maximum profit, he specifically chose the most violent options in the system, excluding illegal or criminal ones, to deal with them. Things like, "Big sister, you're so old, stop trying to hit on a younger guy, go find an old man to marry," were barbs he could spit out effortlessly. The effect was outstanding. The counterattacks from the young ladies were also truly violent. At best, they unleashed a torrent of national insults, and at worst, they resorted to physical violence. On the Haizhu pedestrian street, a girl who had practiced sanda slapped him on the back. The sound was as crisp as a firecracker, and it hurt so much he winced for a long time. Starting Tuesday afternoon, the system suddenly went silent. Although there weren't as many girls coming to hit on him as before, they weren't completely absent, yet the system was like dead, not even popping up half a dialogue box. Fang Tian immediately realized this was the system sanctioning him for over-farming points. The dog system not only had trigger conditions, but it actually had a cool-down mechanism too. So, he chose to quit while he was ahead. Before 3 p.m. on Tuesday, Fang Tian finished work early and took the high-speed rail back to Gusu. After getting home, he dumped all 27 attribute points into X ability. The number on the attribute panel jumped from 64 to 75. The remarks refreshed accordingly. X ability, 75, your X ability is already among the best on this planet. Little Fang Tian's length 1, breadth 3 centimeters, plus your rich theoretical knowledge, is enough to conquer most women. 1. Fang Tian stared at this number for several seconds. Then, relying on his clever brain, he quickly did some mental math. No, this number wasn't right. After little Fang Tian broke through 14 centimeters, each attribute point only grew 0.1 centimeters. Previously, one attribute point could trade for 0.2 centimeters, but now it had been cut directly in half. What a scam! He thought that by dumping these 27 points, he could directly surge to 18 centimeters plus 10 centimeters with length and breadth advancing side by side, becoming a tough guy that even the system would look at with respect. He didn't expect that upgrading would come with devaluation. Now he was still a dozen or so attribute points away from 18 centimeters, and he suspected that it would continue to devalue by then. However, this level was already better than his past life. One shouldn't be too greedy. 16.24, rounded up, was also a 2-digit standard. Although the breadth was only 3 centimeters. Its base was small to begin with, so he would just have to grind slowly in the future. Fang Tian had been timing his departures and arrivals to the minute these past 2 days. Su Wan left for work at 8 in the morning, he would only set off after confirming her car had pulled out of the garage. He would return in the evening before she got home, take a shower, change his clothes, and sit on the sofa reading or watching TV. The whole process was watertight. Su Wan had absolutely no idea that her godson had gone behind her back to 2 different cities to engage in high-intensity confrontations with strange women for 2 days. When he came out after his shower, Su-won hadn't arrived home yet. Fang Tian was wearing a pair of loose shorts and a white cotton tank top. It was that kind of most ordinary athletic tank top, the fabric washed until it was soft and limp, clinging to his body. These 2+ months of persistent exercise had already yielded some results in his physique. His shoulders were a bit broader, and muscle lines could be seen on his arms. Although he was still far from being sturdy, he was no longer just a skeleton. He was just wiping his hair with a towel when he heard the sound of the door lock turning. Su-won shouted into the room while taking off her shoes, "Tian Tian, we're having fish today. Help me prep the vegetables and the fish, I'm going to take a shower before I cook. It's just too hot outside, I can't stand it." She put the plastic bag in her hand on the entryway cabinet and bent over to take off her high heels. Today, the maximum temperature in Gasu was 37 degrees Celsius. It had entered the sweltering heat early in late May. Although it was already past 6 in the evening, it was still stuffy and hot outside. She was wearing a dark gray thin suit skirt, a fitted small suit jacket with a hip-hugging skirt that ended 10 centimeters above her knees, paired with an off-white silk shirt inside. The top button of the shirt was done up properly, but she had already taken off the suit jacket on the way home and draped it over her arm, and the sleeves of the shirt were pushed up to her mid-forearms, revealing a section of fair skin. Her face was covered in fine beads of sweat, her forehead was shiny, and a few stray hairs on her temples were dampened by sweat and stuck to her skin. Her little face was flushed, like she had just finished a sauna. Her lip makeup was a bit smudged, the edges of the lipstick slightly blurred, which instead gave it more of a lived-in feel than perfectly neat makeup. "Okay. Give it to me." Fang Tian took the bag from her hand, which contained a sea base, some green vegetables, tofu, and a small piece of lean meat. Su-won would stop by the supermarket to buy groceries every day after work before heading home to cook. Su-won changed into slippers, unbuttoning the top button of her shirt to let it breathe while walking toward the bathroom. She walked 2 steps and then turned back to instruct, "The supermarket clerk has already killed the sea bass, you just need to scrape off the scales and wash it. Don't worry." By the time Su-won came out after her shower, Fang Tian had already finished prepping the fish, meat, and vegetables. The fish had its scales scraped clean and was rinsed thoroughly, sitting on a plate. The lean meat was sliced thin and marinated with cooking wine. The green vegetables were drained and arranged in a basket. Su-won came out of the bathroom, wiping her hair with a bath towel while walking toward the living room. Today, perhaps because she felt too hot after her shower, she wasn't wearing that light blue nightgown. It was just the simplest 2-piece set. On her upper body was a white racerback tank top, tight-fitting, thin cotton material, with a length that only reached a bit above her navel. On her lower body was a pair of light pink hot pants. The pant legs were outrageously short, just a little bit longer than the base of her thighs, almost the length of a pair of homeware boxer briefs. But the impact of that scene, even though Fang Tian had been living with her for so many days, was still a bit hard for him to handle. That white tank top was too tight. Tight enough to outline the fullness of her chest without reservation, every curve clearly visible. Even more fatal was that because the fabric was thin and white, one could vaguely see the slightly protruding contours of the 2 points on her chest. It wasn't transparent, but that kind of faint, elusive visual sensation was more lethal than seeing everything clearly. And those pink hot pants made her legs look exceptionally slender. Although she wasn't tall, her leg shape was truly beautiful. Her thighs were plump and fleshy but not bloated, her calves were slender and straight, and her skin was glowing white. Because she had just showered, her legs still had a luster of undried moisture. She walked barefoot on the wooden floor, the green nail polish on her toes sparkling under the lights. She walked over while tilting her head to wipe her hair, the ends still dripping, water droplets falling onto her shoulders and sliding into her tank top along her collarbone. Her face had a flush from the hot shower, a clean bare face, no drawn eyebrows, no lip glaze on her lips, but it was just beautiful. Fang Tian stared blankly. He swallowed hard a few times, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down, completely forgetting to look away. Su Wan naturally noticed his straight, unblinking gaze. She rolled her eyes at him, her pupils turning half a circle before retracting, the small curve at the corner of her mouth impossible to hide. What's wrong? Haven't you seen enough after so many days? She lowered her head and tugged at the hem of her tank top, a very casual action, but this movement instead pulled the fabric down a bit, revealing a bit more of the fair curve below her collarbone. Godmother is so beautiful, how could I ever get tired of looking? Fang Tian didn't feel guilty at all. You and that mouth of yours, you're getting better and better at sweet-talking people. Su Wan took the bath towel off her hair and walked over to drape it on the rack on the balcony. As she passed by Fang Tian, she brought a gust of wind, the fragrance of body wash and the warmth steaming from her body after the shower brushing against his face. She wiped her hands dry, went into the kitchen, chased Fang Tian out, and started making dinner. The sound of the spatula hitting the iron wok came from the kitchen, mixed with the sizzling sound of oil splashing. Fang Tian leaned on the sofa, took a deep breath, and looked down at his shorts. Brother, you need to stay steady. After dinner, Su Wan had made steamed sea bass, green vegetable and tofu soup, and a dish of shredded pork with green peppers. The portions weren't large but each dish was exquisite. Fang Tian finished the last green vegetable, took the initiative to clear the dishes, and the two curled up on the sofa to watch TV. It was still the urban drama Su Wan had been following recently. The plot had already developed to the point where the male and female leads had cleared their misunderstandings and started hurting each other, the level of melodrama making Fang Tian's eyelids twitch. However, he was already used to it. He leaned on the armrest of the sofa, and Su Wan sat at the other end of the sofa. There was about the distance of one person between them, and the fruit plate was placed on the small coffee table in the middle, containing washed cherry tomatoes. Fang Tian watched the TV, but his peripheral vision was paying attention to Su Wan. He noticed she kept rubbing the back of her neck. Rubbing with her right hand, rubbing a few times then putting it down, and starting to rub again after a while. Back and forth several times, she even twisted her neck, her brows furrowed. What's wrong, Godmother? I see you keep rubbing your neck. Fang Tian turned down the volume of the TV a little and tilted his head to ask her. Sigh, I don't know what's wrong, maybe I'm just old. Su Wan put down the hand that was rubbing her neck and stretched her shoulders. My neck feels so stiff today, it hasn't felt right since I got up this morning, and it got worse by the afternoon, aching and swollen, and it's not smooth when I twist it. Maybe I slept in the wrong position last night, or maybe I sat in the office for too long. As she said this, she twisted her neck again, sucking in a breath of air in pain, her lips slightly pursed. The system's multiple-choice question arrived on schedule. Facing the distress of your beautiful godmother's neck pain, what is your choice? 1. Nod solemnly and express complete agreement with godmother's self-assessment of being old. 2. Mercilessly mock her, ha ha ha. Godmother, you know you're old too. You've got quite the self-awareness. 3. Proactively offer to give godmother a massage to alleviate or resolve her discomfort. 4. Directly give her back of the neck a hit, worsening the symptoms, so you can go to the hospital with a legitimate excuse. Chapter 22, Bedroom Massage. Is it very sore and painful? If it hurts, let me massage it for you. Fang Tian wasn't an expert at the art of massage, but he certainly had some foundation in it. In his previous life, when he was around 10 years old, his grandmother's rheumatoid arthritis flared up. She would cry out in pain at night, and since he was the only idle person in the house, he would massage her legs and shoulders every night. A middle schooler wouldn't know any proper techniques, he just pressed blindly, relying on accumulated experience. Over time, he slowly figured out some tricks of the trade. Later, in the military, After training, fellow soldiers would help each other relax their muscles, and his hands became famous for being effective. In his past life, every woman who had a brief encounter with him and had been massaged by him never forgot his skill. Su Wan's eyes lit up, and she nodded, her tone carrying undisguised happiness. Okay, my neck is really incredibly sore. It's been stiff since the meeting this afternoon, and no matter how I twist it, it just doesn't feel right. Fang Tian moved the cushion off the sofa, clearing space for Su Wan to lie flat. But he soon discovered a problem. The sofa was too narrow, and after Su Wan lay down, there was almost no extra space on either side. If he wanted to massage her, he would either have to sit on her. Although he really wanted to, his reason hadn't left him yet. Or he would have to find a stool. But there were no small stools of the right height in the house, and sitting on the floor would make the posture awkward, making it hard for his hands to reach or apply force. His hands hovered in mid-air, hesitating to descend. Su Wan tilted her head, looking up at him from below, and said, "Tian Tian, what's wrong? Why aren't you massaging?" "Well, neither posture is very convenient." Fang Tian looked around the living room, then asked tentatively, "How about this, Godmother, shall we go to your bed to do the massage? You'll be more comfortable lying down, and it will be easier for me to work." His tone was very normal when he said this, but his heart had already quietly accelerated. "All right, it's more convenient to lie on the bed. Let's go." Su Wan sat up from the sofa, twisted her stiff neck, and didn't think there was anything wrong with this suggestion at all. She walked in front and pushed open the master bedroom door, with Fang Tian following behind. In some matters, Godmother was truly as innocent as a blank sheet of paper. Fang Tian sighed silently in his heart. Instead, he was the one who felt like a bad uncle, his mind full of things she couldn't even imagine. This was his first time stepping into Su Wan's master bedroom. The moment the door was pushed open, the first sensation that rushed over him was fragrance. It wasn't the faint, elusive scent from the living room, but a richer, more intimate aroma. It wasn't pungent, it wrapped around him gently and tenderly. The milky scent of body wash mixed with a smell Fang Tian couldn't name. It was like the body fragrance left behind by a woman after staying in a room for a long time, or like the scent emitted by dried flowers that had been scenting the wardrobe for a long time. This was the scent on Su Wan, but every inch of air in this room was saturated with it, there was nowhere to hide from it. The room's decor was a mix of girlishness and gentle temperament. On the nightstand sat a vintage desk lamp with a lace-trimmed lampshade, casting a soft, warm yellow glow. The curtains were thick beige linen, half-drawn, filtering the gossamer outside into a hazy gray blue. The skincare products on the vanity were arranged neatly. Beside the makeup mirror stood a small photo frame containing a picture of Su Wan and a woman. Judging by the appearance, it should be Fang Tian's biological mother. The bed sheets were wine red. The quilt was also wine red, made of satin fabric, shimmering with a soft luster under the lamp. This color made Fang Tian's heart skip a beat. Su Wan favored dark-colored intimate items. Her underwear was dark, her stockings were dark, and now even her bedding was red, a fiery, passionate red. "Godmother, I'll move the quilt, you lie down." Fang Tian rolled up the wine-red quilt, carried it to the bay window seat to place it, and smoothed out the bed sheets. Su Wan lay down on her stomach. Her whole body sank into the wine-red sheets, her face turned to the side, resting on her arms, her body spread out in relaxation. That white tank top was slightly taut in her prone position, outlining the smooth contours of her back and the slender curves of her waist. The pink hot pants were stretched tight in the prone position. Her two thighs extending from the pant legs, dazzlingly white against the dark red sheets. Her legs were casually pressed together, the curves at the base of her thighs smooth and plump, her calves slightly raised. Fang Tian's throat tightened. It was clearly the same silhouette, but on the living room sofa versus the master bedroom bed, they were completely different concepts. The entire bedroom was filled with her scent, and she was lying on the bed, completely defenseless. He fiercely slapped himself twice in his mind. No, Su-won's neck is still hurting, massage the proper places first. Fang Tian took off his slippers and got on the bed. His knees landed on the mattress to the left of Su-won's body, causing the mattress to sink slightly. Because he had to massage her neck and shoulders, the two were very close. He could clearly smell the lingering scent of body wash on Su-won after her bath, as well as that faint fragrance that belonged only to this room. He sat cross-legged, took a deep breath, extended his hands, and gently placed them on the back of Su-won's neck. The moment his fingertips touched her skin, Su-won shuddered slightly, her neck shrinking inward. But she immediately relaxed, burying her face in her arms, her voice muffled, "Tian Tian, massage gently. Godmother can't take much pressure, I'm afraid of pain." "Okay, let me test the feel first." Fang Tian's fingers started from the hairline on the back of Su-won's neck and moved downwards. Her skin was very smooth, having just bathed, it still had a thin layer of moisture, and there was almost no friction resistance when his fingers pressed down. The skin on the back of her neck was particularly delicate, and he could feel the muscles underneath slightly stiff from long-term tension. His thumb slowly pressed along the muscle grooves on both sides of her cervical spine. The pressure went from probing at the start to gradually increasing. The trapezius muscles on both sides were clearly a bit tight, and when pressed, he could feel small knots rolling under his fingertips. "Mm." Su-won let out a muffled nasal sound, indistinguishable whether it was pain or pleasure. "Is this pressure okay?" "Mm, it's fine." Su-won's voice relaxed a lot, "It's right here that's sore, massage this more." Fang Tian's hand slowly pushed along the working line of the back of her neck toward both sides of her shoulders. Her shoulders were narrow, and the tension was strongest where the trapezius muscles connected to the upper edge of the shoulder blades. People who work in offices are most prone to problems in this area. He used the base of his palms to increase the area of pressure, slowly pushing outward in circles, then returning, with a steady rhythm. Comfortable." Su-won's shoulder blades shrugged slightly with his movements. "Tian Tian, you're so great, I didn't expect you to know how to do this." "Ah. That's the spot, harder." Fang Tian closed his eyes for a moment. "No, this is massage. Proper massage. Not a massage wand massage." But the sounds coming from Su-won's mouth didn't sound like feedback for a proper massage at all. That soft, muffled trailing note buried in the pillow made him feel like little Fang Tian was protesting against him every time he heard it. He forced his attention to focus on his fingers, using his thumbs to press down along the cervical spine, one vertebra at a time. The technique was real. And the professionalism was real, but his mind was no longer entirely innocent. Little Fang Tian still couldn't hold it. It stood tall and proud, expressing an exceptionally respectful salute to Su-won. Fang Tian looked down at the obvious tent on his loose shorts and gritted his back teeth. Sitting sideways like this to massage was still a bit awkward, he had to stretch his body slightly to apply force, and after a while, his waist felt a bit sore. Moreover, with his little brother propped up there, if he accidentally brushed against Su-won, the situation would be quite awkward. And just at this moment, the system popped up. Fang Tian glanced at the light screen, and then his whole body went numb. Consecutive tasks have been activated. Please note, once consecutive tasks are activated, all tasks must be completed within 48 hours to claim the total reward. If any task fails, 100 attribute points will be deducted. Task 1. Prerequisite task completed. Take the initiative to offer to massage Godmother to alleviate or resolve her discomfort. Task 2. Massage Godmother's waist, thighs, and calves. Task 3. Massage the sides of Godmother's chest and her inner thighs. Task 4, let Godmother help you alleviate little Fang Tian's discomfort. Humans have many merits, and mutual aid is one of them. Since you alleviated Godmother's discomfort, then letting Godmother help you alleviate your discomfort is also only natural. Fang Tian read through the entire chain of tasks from beginning to end, every word and punctuation mark, and only one thought remained in his mind. The dog system, are you even human? 100 attribute points. If he failed, 100 points would be deducted, and his X ability would be deducted into negative numbers. He didn't dare to imagine that scene. Moreover, the design of the 4 tasks was progressive. Task 1, massaging the neck, was the starting point. Task 2 extended to the thighs and waist. Task 3 directly involved the sides of the chest and inner thighs. That would definitely brush against the edges. Task 4 was the most outrageous, requiring Su Wan to help him alleviate little Fang Tian's discomfort. The task description was written in such a self-righteous manner, saying that mutual aid is a fine human tradition, and since he helped Su Wan, it was only natural for Su Wan to help him. Natural, my ass. You want me dead? Fang Tian looked down at Su Wan lying on the bed. She was completely unaware, the back of her head facing him, her breathing steady, still enjoying the lingering sensation in her neck. Those fair thighs were right by his hand, slightly parted on the wine-red sheets. He looked at the system's task time limit again, 48 hours. Zhangting would be here tomorrow. Which meant, tonight was the best opportunity. Tian Tian, why did you stop? Su Wan's voice came from the pillow. She turned over, tilted her head to look at him, her almond eyes filled with confusion and the lingering sensation of comfort that hadn't fully faded. Nothing, I was just thinking about which part to massage next. Fang Tian pulled out a natural smile and placed his hands back on Su Wan's lower back. Godmother, does your waist usually get sore? People who work in offices generally don't have very good lower backs. The neck and waist are connected. If you only massage the neck and not the waist, even if the neck gets better, the waist will still come to torment you. My waist also gets sore often, especially during those few days of my period. I can barely stand. Then let me massage your waist for you. Fang Tian's hand reached in a little bit from the hem of her tank top, placing it on her lower back through the thin cotton fabric. That small section of slender waist was slightly arched in the prone position, revealing 2 shallow dimples. His palm pressed against it, and he could feel the warmth and softness of the skin beneath the fabric. Chapter 23, Your hands are so hot. Tian Tian, that's a bit ticklish. As soon as Fang Tian's hand touched Su Wan's waist, her whole body gave a slight shudder. A tingling, numbing sensation shot from the skin on her lower back straight to the top of her head, as if her spine had been brushed by the tip of a feather. This area had never been touched by a man before. At this moment, it was being occupied for the first time by the hands of a man over a decade younger than her. She felt a bit strange. It wasn't exactly uncomfortable, but it wasn't just purely pleasurable either. It was a strange sensation that made her heart race. Yes, Su Wan was still a maiden to this day. Such a phenomenon would indeed be hard to understand back on Earth. But in this world, there were not a few women like Su Wan. Ultimately, this was a society with a severe imbalance, where there were more women than men. The more proactive, active, and early a woman made her move on a man, the greater her chances of escaping singlehood. But Su Wan had come to this realization quite late. When she was in her early 20s, there were quite a few men chasing her. She was young, pretty, had a gentle temperament, and was famously good-looking at her workplace. But back then, she was single-mindedly focused on her work, felt that dating was too much trouble, and that marriage and having children were things far out of reach, so she declined them all. By the time she finally felt a bit lonely and wanted to seriously date, she discovered that the suitable men around her had long been snatched up by younger, more proactive girls. She was pretty, yes. But she was 35, she was no longer young. And because the men in this world were used to being scarce resources, their standards were generally ridiculously high. They wanted youth, beauty, a house, a car, savings, and preferably someone who could bear several children. Apart from being pretty, Su Wan had no advantages in the marriage market of this world. She was no longer young, bearing children would make her an older mother, and she had never been a proactive personality, she even had a mild case of social anxiety. She only talked more when with acquaintances, facing strange men, she found it difficult to even speak. Forcing her to actively chase men was something she truly couldn't do. So, once she became single, she stayed that way until now. Listening to Su Wan's words, which carried a slight pant, Fang Tian's throat tightened as if it were blocked by something. He said dryly, "Godmother, you'll get used to it." Then he grabbed both sides of her waist with his hands and gently kneaded with his thumbs. Su Wan's waist was very slim and soft. When she lay on her stomach, her waist dipped slightly, forming a soft, beautiful curve. The hem of that white tank top had ridden up during her previous wiggling, revealing a small patch of fair skin on her lower back. Fang Tian's palm pressed against it through a thin layer of cotton, and he could clearly feel the warmth and softness beneath the fabric. His thumb slowly pushed upward along the erector spiny muscles on both sides of her spine. With every inch he pushed, Su Wan's body would heave slightly in response. Right there, it's so sore." Su Wan buried her face in the pillow, her voice muffled and soft. Fang Tian increased the pressure slightly, using the heel of his hands to slowly draw circles on the dimples of her waist. There were two shallow dimples on her lower back, which were especially prominent in her prone position. Pressing his fingers onto them felt like sinking into two warm clouds. He could feel the muscles in her waist gradually relaxing under his palms, the originally tense muscle fibers uncoiling bit by bit. "Tian Tian, your hands are so hot," Su Wan suddenly said, her tone vague, as if expressing some sort of feeling. Fang Tian looked down at his own hands. They were indeed hot. His palms were burning hot, as if a fire was burning from his palms up his arms and into his chest. Moreover, he discovered that his breathing had unconsciously become heavy. He had to deliberately control the force of every exhale so as not to blow onto Su Wan's back. The master bedroom was very quiet. It was quiet enough to hear the ticking sound of the electronic clock on the wall and the occasional sound of car horns from the distance outside the window. The wine-red bed sheets were wrinkled from the two of them tossing around. Su Wan was lying on her stomach in the center of the bed, while Fang Tian sat sideways beside her, his legs crossed, his body leaning slightly forward. The warm yellow light from the bedside lamp spilled over the two of them, dyeing Su Wan's exposed shoulders and arms a honeyed hue. "Godmother, next I'll massage your legs. People who work in offices easily get swollen legs." Fang Tian's hands moved away from Su Wan's lower back and placed them onto her calves. Su Wan's leg shape was truly good. Her calves were full and rounded, her ankles slender, and her skin was almost transparently white, with fine blue veins visible underneath. Fang Tian's thumbs pressed onto her calves, pushing from bottom to top along the muscle lines, pushing up to the back of the knees before sliding back down, repeating this several times. Su Wan let out a long nasal sound, and her calf tensed slightly under his palm before relaxing again. "Tian Tian, you're so good at massaging. Godmother feels like my whole legs are lighter." Fang Tian did not answer. Because all his attention was used to control his breathing and a certain disobedient part of himself. Massaging the calves was fine, after all, the calves were a proper area. But when his hands moved up to her thighs, problems arose. Her legs were too smooth. Her skin was as delicate as silk, and the flesh was soft and elastic. Spreading his fingers to gently knead, his palms could feel the warmth and softness of the muscles underneath. The legs of her hot pants were very short. When his fingers pushed to the edge of the hem, he dared not go any further, so he could only pull back and start pushing from the knees again. But after pushing back and forth like this for 3 or 4 times, Fang Tian found that his posture was becoming increasingly awkward. He was sitting sideways and had to lean forward slightly to massage Su Wan's thighs. And after a while, his waist began to ache. And most importantly, the state of little Fang Tian was no longer suitable for being pressed by sitting sideways. It needed a more concealed angle. Fang Tian took a deep breath and stopped his hands. "Godmother." Su Wan responded with a muffled sound. "Sitting sideways like this to massage, I can't really apply much strength, and my waist gets sore after a while." He paused, and said as calmly as possible, "How about I straddle you? This way the pressure is easier to control, and I won't hurt my own waist." "Straddle you." These 4 words were exceptionally clear in the quiet bedroom. Su Wan was silent for 2 seconds. Fang Tian's heartbeat accelerated to combat status during those 2 seconds. "Sure. Anyway, you're not heavy, it's fine if you sit up." Su Wan's tone was quite light. Fang Tian closed his eyes for a moment. "Godmother, do you really not know what I'm talking about?" He stood up, took a long stride, and straddled over Su Wan's prone body. The mattress sank slightly where his knees landed. He hovered over Su Wan's body, his knees kneeling on the mattress on both sides of her thighs, his center of gravity shifted slightly forward, and he sat steadily on the back of Su Wan's legs. To be precise, he was sitting on the back of her thighs near the lower edge of her buttocks. This posture. Fang Tian's perspective changed from the side to directly above. Looking down, he saw the back of Su Wan's head, her rounded shoulders, the back groove outlined by the white tank top, the curve of her slim waist, her pert buttocks wrapped in pink hot pants, and 2 dazzlingly white thighs pressed together beneath his knees. Her body was spread out before him like a complete scroll. So beautiful, so exciting. Fang Tian swallowed hard. He felt his saliva was hot too. Chapter 24, "You continue, I'm fine." Fang Tian sat on the upper part of Su Wan's thighs. Of course, he didn't sit down completely. Su Wan's thighs moved slightly beneath him, then relaxed again. With the back of her head facing him, she lay prone on the wine-red bedsheets, the hem of her white tank top having ridden up, revealing a small patch of fair skin on her lower back. Fang Tian swallowed repeatedly. He was a little nervous. The scene within his line of sight made his heart rate accelerate suddenly. The distance between them was separated only by his shorts and Su Wan's hot pants, 2 thin layers of summer loungewear. But what could 2 thin layers of fabric block? They blocked nothing. That wisp of warmth was like a breeze leaking in from another world, drifting along those curves, the heat of an undercurrent hidden within the warmth. Su Wan's body was as soft as spring water. Every time she trembled slightly, that place would sink down a little, only to be slowly lifted back up. Fang Tian clenched his molars, and sweat broke out on his forehead. "Tian Tian, are you sitting comfortably?" Su Wan's voice came from below, her tone trembling slightly. In truth, she had felt it the very first moment, and she didn't understand why she had asked such a redundant question. She was nervous, so she was just making conversation. "I'm sitting comfortably. Godmother, I'll continue massaging your thighs. Tell me if it hurts." Fang Tian's voice was very steady. He placed his hands back on the back of Su Wan's thighs, pushing upwards from the back of her knees. This angle was indeed much easier for massaging her thighs, and the pressure was more even. But his heart was no longer on the massage at all. He was experiencing the tentative, lingering contact between them. In their mutual advance and retreat, there was no fierce confrontation, just a simple sparring session, stopping at the point of contact. Su Wan didn't speak. But Fang Tian noticed that the tips of her ears had turned red. It wasn't the red from being steamed by hot water, but an uncontrollable crimson slowly rising from the depths of her skin. Her breathing had changed, too, the original even rhythm was disrupted, becoming light and shallow, as if she were deliberately suppressing something. When that touch slid toward the deepest point, she quietly closed the gap between her knees, like a mimosa plant folding its leaves. She must have noticed. But she didn't pull away, didn't tell him to get down, and didn't even ask, "Tian Tian, what are you doing?" Fang Tian's heart was beating like a drum. It was beating so fast. He continued massaging, his hands moving without pause, his body swaying gently with the rhythm of the massage. Each time he pushed against her thighs, he naturally leaned forward a little, and each time he pulled back, he retreated a little. But he kept the amplitude of this movement within the natural motion of the massage, so it just looked like he was applying pressure. Time became viscous in this wine-red room. 10 minutes or 20 minutes, Fang Tian had completely lost the concept of time. The light from the desk lamp enveloped them in a warm, yellow, private space. "Godmother, next I'll massage the sides of your upper body. People who sit for long periods tend to get tight there too." Fang Tian heard his own voice sounding extremely hoarse. The tips of Su Wan's ears were red enough to drip blood. She lifted her face slightly from the pillow, turning her head to reveal half a flushed cheek. Those almond eyes were full of water, her gaze glancing up at him before shifting away. "Mn." She gave a soft response and buried her face back into the pillow. Fang Tian could see her fingers clutching the edge of the pillow, her knuckles slightly tense. Fang Tian shifted his center of gravity backward, moving off her legs, then leaned down, reaching his hands forward from both sides of Su Wan's back. At this angle, his chest was almost pressed against her back, his breath blowing directly onto the back of her neck. There was a layer of fine down on the back of her neck, which stood up slightly upon feeling Fang Tian's breath. Fang Tian's fingers slid slowly forward along her ribs, finally landing gently on the soft curves on both sides. Separated by a thin white tank top, what he felt in his palms was the warmth and rising and falling beneath. Su Wan's body was like the surface of a lake suddenly frozen by the wind, that taut string extended from her spine to her fingertips, and her hand clutching the pillow edge quietly gripped even tighter. This position left only a centimeter of distance between Fang Tian's chest and her back, their body heat intertwining. It felt as if Fang Tian's heart was about to jump out, and Su Wan could also feel the increasingly obvious presence behind her. "Tian Tian." Su Wan called his name softly. It was not a command, not a refusal, and not a question. Her voice was light and soft, the tail end trembling slightly. As if she were confirming he was still there, or perhaps as if she were struggling with her own reason. "Godmother, you are indeed very tight here, you need to continue relaxing." Fang Tian maintained a professional tone. At this moment, he was a focused masseur. His hands didn't stop, moving from top to bottom, from bottom to top, feeling every trace of reaction in Su Wan's body. His lower abdomen pressed against Su Wan's lower back, feeling the softness of her waist. Su Wan's body trembled slightly under his palms. Then his hands continued to move downward. After going back and forth a few times, Fang Tian finished massaging the outer sides. Finally, his hands stopped at the inner edge of Su Wan's thighs. At this point, asking would only break the tacit understanding between them. Fang Tian's fingers rested gently on them. The skin on the inner side of Su Wan's thighs was thinner and more tender, the texture delicate, carrying the warmth of her body. He slowly pushed upward from her knee along the inner thigh, stopping at the hem of her hot pants, then pulled back. Su Wan's breathing became noticeably heavier, her prone body rising and falling slightly. Her legs unconsciously spread apart, then closed, then spread apart a little again. "Godmother." "Mn." This time, Su Wan's voice already carried a hint of hoarseness and trembling. The inner thighs are usually hard to exercise, they need more relaxation. Fang Tian stated his reason flawlessly, his palm slowly pressing on that patch of soft skin, tapping, drawing circles, or kneading. Suwon buried her face tightly into the pillow, emitting a very faint, muffled whimper that seeped out from inside the pillow core. Fang Tian's forehead was covered in sweat. A few drops of sweat slid down from his temples, dripping onto Suwon's tank top. The blood in his whole body was rushing and surging, and he was already in the most taut state. And Suwon's body was even more accommodating than he had imagined, able to absorb and accept his every unconscious approach. Fang Tian's hands were still marking, their speed increasing. He wiped away some sweat, leaned down, and lowered his voice to whisper into Suwon's ear, "Godmother, you seem very nervous. Do you want me to slow down?" Suwon's ears were purple-red, her shoulders trembling slightly. Her face was mostly buried in the pillow, revealing only half a side profile and one tightly closed eye, her eyelashes wet. Her lips moved for a long time before she managed to squeeze out a sentence, her voice thin and soft, boneless. You continue, Godmother is fine." She buried her face deeper, her 10 toes curling tightly, the tips of her toes with green nail polish shining slightly under the light. Chapter 25, Do you want me to help you? Fang Tian's hand paused at the edge of Suwon's inner thigh, his fingertips able to feel the extremely faint pulse beneath that patch of skin. His own heartbeat was already on the verge of spiraling out of control, yet the movements of his hand remained steady. The hands that were once agile and steady in the face of code and bugs in his previous life were now entirely dedicated to massaging her in this one. Massaging the inner thigh was somewhat difficult in their current position. Leaning forward, it was hard to control the pressure precisely. More importantly, he had to constantly distract himself from the accidental contact between their bodies. Afraid that he would lose his composure first. He needed a more suitable position. "Godmother." Fang Tian leaned down, his voice low and polite. "I can't quite control the pressure from this position. If it's convenient for you, could you shift a little? If I massage you from behind, it will be easier." Suwon was lying on the pillow, her body stiffening for a split second, almost imperceptibly. She was not oblivious to their current posture, the flush on her ears had not faded since he began massaging her waist. Yet, she still gave a soft and then slowly, she spread her closed legs just a little. The movement was very slow, as if every inch of movement carried hesitation, yet it also held an indescribable sense of compliance. Her fair skin glowed softly against the wine-red sheets under the warm yellow light. Fang Tian adjusted his position and sat down behind her. This angle was indeed much more convenient. He could apply pressure with both hands simultaneously, following the muscle grain of her inner thigh, pushing and massaging inch by inch from the back of her knee upward. The skin beneath his palms was delicate and warm, with every push and press, he could feel the subtle trembling of the muscles underneath. His fingertips traced slowly upward along the firm lines, his pressure steady. Suwon buried her face deep into the pillow, her fingers quietly clutching the edge of the pillowcase. Her breathing became disordered. It wasn't rapid, but rather a disorder born of trying her best to restrain herself while still losing the rhythm. Her inhalations were light and shallow, but her exhalations were drawn out long, the tail end carrying a faint, imperceptible tremor. Beads of sweat seeped from Fang Tian's temples. He cast aside distracting thoughts and focused on the movements of his hands, letting the pressure from the heels of his palms penetrate into her tensed muscles. Suwon's breathing gradually became deep and long, following the rhythm of his massage, and those tense knots in her body seemed to be kneaded away bit by bit, transforming into waves of numbing warmth that surged through her limbs and bones. The feeling wasn't a sharp stimulation, but a continuous, sigh-inducing mix of soreness and relief, so comfortable that her toes curled involuntarily. "Tian Tian." Her voice came from inside the pillow, heavy with a nasal tone, soft as if it were melting. "Where are you massaging?" Her voice was trembling, the amplitude was small, but the frequency was high, as if some resonance from deep within her body had been transmitted to her vocal cords. The muscles on her inner thigh trembled violently under his palms, causing her entire leg to shake slightly. Fang Tian steadied himself, his voice slightly hoarse. "Godmother, I am helping you relax the tendons and muscles of your inner thighs. You sit for long periods, so this area tends to get tense. It will feel comfortable once it's loosened up." He didn't stop his hand movements, his thumb slowly and steadily pushing and kneading along the innermost contour of her upper thigh, reaching the edge of her hot pants. Su Wan's knees uncontrollably pulled inward slightly, while her ankles turned outward, a contradictory posture of wanting to dodge, yet instinctively wanting to welcome more relief. Fang Tian could clearly feel the temperature of the skin beneath his palms rising, a unique, warm scent of hers wrapping around him in wisps. Su Wan's body jolted, then her legs clamped back together for a moment, before relaxing outward again. Her 10 toes curled tightly, leaving shallow marks on the sheets. Tian Tian. She called out softly again, but this time, her tone didn't sound like a question, it sounded more like she was struggling against some surging sensation within her body. Her voice suppressed a tremor and a hint of irrepressible shyness, the tail end drawn out long, like a string about to snap at any moment. Fang Tian's hand, firm and steady, moved a little further inward. Su Wan's reaction was intense and sudden. Her entire body tensed up abruptly, her spine arching into a graceful curve. Her legs clamped down on Fang Tian's hand, so tightly that he could feel the spasms in her leg muscles. Her hands gripped the pillow, and she let out a very soft, low whimper, muffled by the pillow, long and thin, like a sigh squeezed from the depths of her soul. Then, she began to tremble uncontrollably. It wasn't a slight tremor, but her whole body shaking violently. Her shoulders, back, waist, thighs, and even the toes pressing against the sheets were shaking. Fang Tian watched her quietly, watching her tensed body relax bit by bit in front of him, as if all the accumulated fatigue and pressure were released along with this silent tremor. It was an exhaustion after unburdening a heavy load, and also a surrender after absolute trust. Her trembling lasted for a few seconds, and then her whole body seemed to have all its strength drained away, and she lay limply on the mattress. She panted heavily, her back heaving dramatically. Her legs released their clamp on Fang Tian, softly spreading to the sides, her calves still twitching in waves. Fang Tian knelt in place, his hands hovering in mid-air, feeling somewhat at a loss for a moment. The master bedroom was silent for 3 seconds. There was only the sound of Su Wan's rapid breathing and the ticking of the digital clock on the wall. Then, Su Wan suddenly sprang up from the bed, her movements surprisingly fast. She stepped onto the floor barefoot, her legs still trembling, knees slightly knocking together, her whole person radiating an air that was both languid and shy. I'm going to the bathroom." Her voice was hoarse and rushed. Before she even finished speaking, she had already rushed into the bathroom attached to the master bedroom, the door slamming shut with a bang, followed immediately by the sound of it being locked. Fang Tian was still kneeling on the bed, his mind blank. He glanced toward the bathroom, the frosted glass door revealed a blurry warm light and a silhouette. The sound of running water started, then quickly quieted down, leaving only the low hum of the exhaust fan. He silently moved to the edge of the bed, sat down with his back bent, his mind in a state of chaos. What should he say when she comes out later? Just as he was agonizing over this, the bathroom door opened. Su Wan stood in the doorway. She had washed her face, a few strands of hair were wet, sticking to her cheeks and neck, and a droplet of water that hadn't been wiped away hung in the hollow of her collarbone. Her face, neck, ears, and even her arms were flushed with a faint, alluring shade of pink. But her eyes, those almond-shaped eyes, were startlingly bright. As her eyes shifted, there was a sparkle he had never seen before. While her face was clearly still flushed with shyness, her eyes revealed another kind of fearless expression. She leaned against the door frame, her body tilting slightly forward, her hands behind her back gripping the edge of the frame, just staring straight at Fang Tian. She looked at him for about 5 seconds. Then her lips moved. Tian Tian, you are so uncomfortable. Her voice was hoarse and soft, the tail end slightly raised, like a feather brushing against the tip of Fang Tian's heart. Her gaze slowly slid down from his face, paused for a second, 2 seconds, and then met his eyes again. Do you want me to help you? Her tone didn't stutter, didn't shy away, it even carried a hint of the knowing tenderness that belongs to a mature woman. But her fingers behind her back were quietly clutching the door frame. That was the only small detail on her entire body that betrayed her nervousness. Problematic ad, reported here. You can disable pop-up ads by becoming a contributor. Become a contributor. Hashtag 26 Chapter 26 Good night. Chapter 26 Good night. Chapter 26 Good night. Fang Tian didn't expect that Su Wan would take the initiative to offer to help him complete task 4. He had already prepared himself to return empty-handed today. He planned to wait for Su Wan to come out of the bathroom, comfort her a little, then return to the guest bedroom to take a cold shower, and find another opportunity tomorrow. A failed continuous task meant a deduction of 100 attribute points, so he had to find a way to complete it. It just wasn't suitable to continue tonight. But he never expected that Su Wan would propose it herself. She stood in the doorway of the bathroom, hands behind her back, picking at the edge of the doorframe, her ears red enough to drip blood, her face still flushed, but those almond eyes looked straight at him, asking him, "Do you want Godmother to help you?" Her voice was hoarse and soft, with a slight tremor at the end, but she didn't stutter at all. Fang Tian's brain was exceptionally clear at this moment. Asking "is it okay" now would be the stupidest response, because Su Wan must have gone through an intense psychological struggle before saying this. He didn't know how long she had stood in the bathroom making psychological preparations in front of the mirror. But the light in her eyes when she came out, clearly shy yet forcing herself not to look away, and the way her fingers were tightly clenched on the doorframe had betrayed her completely. At this moment, she needed an affirmative response, not a question back. A question would cause the courage she had finally mustered to be blown away by the wind. So Fang Tian didn't ask anything. He stood up from the bedside and walked to Su Wan. The two stood face to face in the narrow space at the doorway of the bathroom, very close, close enough to feel each other's breath. Su Wan looked up at him, her eyelashes trembling slightly, lips pursed, the white vest on her chest rising and falling with rapid breathing. Her body was still emitting the fragrance of body wash from her shower, and a warm, private scent that belonged to her. Fang Tian reached out and gently hugged her. This was the first real hug between the two. Not the kind where Su Wan sat on a stool and hugged his waist crying, not the kind where one sought comfort and the other provided care. It was a pure hug between a man and a woman. His arms wrapped around her back, his palms falling between her shoulder blades. The other hand resting gently on her lower back. Su Wan's body stiffened slightly in his arms, then slowly softened, her forehead resting gently on his collarbone. Thank you, Godmother." Fang Tian lowered his head, his lips against Su Wan's ear as he said this. His voice was low, his breath spraying on her earlobe. He could feel Su Wan's body tremble slightly in his arms. Su Wan didn't speak. Her face was buried in his chest, and Fang Tian could feel the temperature of her cheeks transferring through the thin fabric of his vest to his skin, shockingly hot. Her hands were initially hanging by her sides, then slowly lifted, resting gently on Fang Tian's waist, her fingers slightly curled, as if touching something she wasn't sure she could touch. Then her hands began to move. Moving slowly from his waist forward, her fingertips brushing over his abdominal muscles, separated by a vest, but still able to feel the hardness and heat underneath. Her hands were very hot, hot as if they had just been fished out of hot water. Her fingertips paused on his abs for a second, then went down, touching the edge of the elastic band of his shorts. Fang Tian's breathing stopped abruptly. Su Wan's fingers hesitated at the edge of the elastic band for about 2 seconds. Then, at an extremely slow speed, she reached in. The moment her hand gripped him, Fang Tian's entire brain went blank for a beat, as if struck by an electric current. Su Wan's hand was very hot, so hot that little Fang Tian jumped slightly in her palm. Fang Tian could feel her fingers trembling slightly, 5 fingers clumsily encircling it, not holding it tight, the web of her hand just catching the very front. At this moment, a puzzle flashed through Su Wan's mind. Was it her imagination? Her limited experience with films told her that the average size of Asian men was within a certain range. But the thing she was holding now, visually it shouldn't look that exaggerated, but only after truly holding it did she know, this hand couldn't circle it at all. The pads of her fingers could feel the pulse of veins jumping slightly under his skin, and a heavy, hard weight with body heat. Based on her limited experience with films, Fang Tian seemed to be much larger than the domestic male actors. Su Wan's face was flushed purple, but she didn't let go. Her technique was terrible. Terrible to the point of having almost no technique to speak of. It was just awkward, mechanical, purely instinctive up and down sliding. The rhythm was sometimes fast and sometimes slow, the strength sometimes light and sometimes heavy, her fingers sometimes closed too tightly and sometimes too loosely. Her thumb didn't know where to put itself, and the other 4 fingers didn't know how to cooperate. The whole process had no tricks, no techniques, just the most primitive and simple movements. But under such circumstances, Fang Tian felt exceptionally comfortable. Not because of the technique. It was because this was Su Wan. It was the godmother who cooked for him every day, watched TV with him, touched his hair, and called him Tian Tian. It was the woman who would ask him if she looked good when she walked out of the bedroom in a floral dress, and who would act coquettishly towards him saying come on when doing yoga in her outfit. It was the Su Wan who would secretly cover her mouth and laugh when he pretended to sleep and talked in his sleep praising her beauty. Who had never given up on Fang Tian. And this skin in this life, this was the first time it had been touched by a real woman. The original owner had swapped left hand for right hand 10,000 times, never touched by another living, warm woman with fragrance and body temperature. So little Fang Tian's reaction was exceptionally intense, every touch felt like 100-fold amplified electric current rushing straight to his skull. Fang Tian himself wasn't idle either. His hands, which had been properly placed on Su Wan's back, slowly slid down. He paused for a while when he slid to her lower back, his fingers gently rubbing the dimples of her waist. Su Wan made a very faint nasal sound, and the hand holding him tightened. Then his hand continued to go down, landing on Su Wan's buttocks, which he had coveted for a long time. Very soft. Softer than he imagined. Through those thin pink hot pants, his palm was full of warm, bouncy softness. His fingers spread slightly, rubbing gently. Su Wan's body softened entirely the moment he rubbed it, her knees bent, and she leaned towards him. Those hands tightly gripped the edge of his shorts to steady herself, her face buried in his chest, making a very light, low whimper muffled in the fabric. Her hands were still moving. Although she was shaking violently, and the strength was even more unstable, she didn't stop. Fang Tian's breathing became heavier and heavier. He pulled Su Wan closer into his arms, one hand continuing to rub gently on her buttocks, the other reaching up to stroke the back of her head, his fingers passing through her still damp hair, gently stroking her scalp. Under his petting, Su Wan was like a cat that had been stroked, leaning docilely against him, but the movements in her palm were getting faster and faster. Then Fang Tian felt Su Wan's other hand lift up, resting on his lower abdomen, as if looking for a more stable pivot point. Her thumb drew circles gently on his abs, and the other fingers cooperated with the movements of the other hand. Godmother. Fang Tian's voice was hoarse, squeezed from the depths of his throat. Su Wan raised her head a little, revealing half of her flushed face and a pair of almond eyes full of water. Her lips were slightly open, her breathing rapid and shallow, the color of her lips redder than usual, as if bitten many times. The look in her eyes as she watched him had shyness, tension, a kind of courage to go all out, and a trace of concern that couldn't be hidden. She was watching his expression, confirming if he was truly comfortable. This look made Fang Tian completely explode. He tightened his arms abruptly, clasping Su Wan tightly in his arms. His face buried in her neck, his nose rubbing against her collarbone, his lips against the small pulse jumping in her neck. Su Wan let out a small exclamation in his arms, and then that exclamation was interrupted by his next action. His body stiffened suddenly, the muscles on his back hardened, and the veins on his arms bulged. Su Wan felt little Fang Tian jumping violently in her palm. Her fingers tightened subconsciously. Then Fang Tian's body shook several times in his arms. The two stood frozen in place. In the quiet bedroom, only each other's panting remained. Su Wan's hand remained in the same position without moving, she could feel her palm stained with something warm. Her face was burning so red it was almost scorched, but she didn't let go. Nor did she scream. She just leaned quietly in Fang Tian's arms, letting him clasp her in his arms, her heart beat so fast both could hear it. After a long time, maybe a minute, maybe 5 minutes, Fang Tian's breathing slowly calmed down, the muscles in his arms relaxed, and the force of clasping Su Wan changed from wishing to rub her into his body to a gentle embrace. Su Wan gently withdrew her hand from his arms. Her hand was stained with something, she looked down at it, and her face flushed another layer. She turned around, walked into the bathroom, the faucet was turned on, and the sound of running water splashed for a while. Then she brought a wet towel out, walked to Fang Tian with her head down, and gently wiped the traces on his body. No words throughout. Head down, ears red through. Fang Tian reached out and held the hand she was using to wipe his pants. Fingers intertwined, held loosely but firmly. Su Wan's hand stopped moving, let him hold it, her fingers curled in his palm. Tian Tian. Her voice was so light it was almost non-existent, her head still lowered, let's just do this for now. Then she added a sentence that lacked any killing power, her voice muffled, you go back to sleep quickly. Fang Tian looked down at the crown of her head, the corners of his mouth curved up. He let go of Su Wan's hand, walked 2 steps towards the door, and looked back again. Su Wan stood by the bed, clutching the wet towel against her chest, her almond eyes still had some moisture, but the small arc at the corners of her mouth couldn't be hidden. Good night, Godmother. Good night. Chapter 27, The Visit of Zhangting. Tian Tian, Godmother is going to work now. Breakfast is on the table, remember to get up early. Dr. Zhang will be here at 10. Su Wan sat by Fang Tian's bedside, gently stroking his hair with one hand, her voice soft and tender. Fang Tian responded with a sleepy mumble. Before he even opened his eyes, his hand had already reached out from under the quilt, accurately finding Su Wan's arm and pulling her towards him. Following his pull, Su Wan leaned down slightly. Fang Tian's other hand reached out, wrapping around her waist and pulling her into his embrace. A pose asking for a hug. Su Wan's face rested against his collarbone, where she could smell the clean scent of laundry detergent from his quilt and feel the warm temperature of his body. Su Wan hesitated for a fraction of a second, then leaned in gently, her forehead resting against his chin and her hand draped over his shoulder. They held the hug for a few seconds. Her face was already flushed with shyness. Last night's events flashed through her mind like a movie, and every frame made her ears burn a little more. All right, Godmother has to go to work now, let go. She patted Fang Tian's arm, her tone carrying a hint of feigned reproach, yet she made no effort to push him away. Hold me a little longer. Fang Tian's voice was muffled as he nuzzled his face against her neck. In truth, he had been awake for a while. He had woken up the moment Su Wan pushed open the door. Right now, he was just using his lingering sleepiness as an excuse to test Su Wan's attitude. Thankfully, everything was normal. Just because it was daylight and Su Wan had calmed down didn't mean she had activated her social distancing mode towards him. She still came to wake him up as usual, and she didn't even resist when he, still groggy from sleep, reached out for a hug. Things like this would have been unlikely in the past. Previously, when Su Wan woke him up, she would at most pat his head or shoulder. She would absolutely never allow Fang Tian to hold onto her without letting go. It seems that after last night, the relationship between the two of them not only didn't cool down but actually warmed up. How wonderful! All right, just a little longer. Su Wan's tone was filled with the indulgence of someone who couldn't say no to him. She leaned closer, the softness of her chest pressing against his arm through her thin knit sweater. As she lowered her head, her lips grazed Fang Tian's cheek almost imperceptibly. Fang Tian felt a craving for the scent on Su Wan. He gently nuzzled her cheek, and in the process, brushed against her lips. The sensation of those two soft lips lingered on his cheek for about half a second. Su Wan tilted her head up slightly, and then, before he could fully react, she lowered her head and gently kissed his cheek. Her lips felt impossibly soft against his skin, lingering for about a second before quickly pulling away. All right, Godmother is leaving now. Eat your breakfast early, don't let it get cold. She straightened up and adjusted the collar of her knit sweater that had been pulled askew by Fang Tian, the tips of her ears bright red. Her footsteps were a fraction faster than usual, and as she walked out of the guest bedroom, she thoughtfully closed the door behind her. Only after hearing the sound of the front door closing did Fang Tian open his eyes. He stared at the ceiling and touched the small patch of skin on his face where she had kissed him, as if the lingering warmth of that soft touch still remained on his fingertips. Everything after last night really felt like a dream. From the moment he started massaging her waist, his mind had been drifting between clarity and confusion. When his hand touched Su Wan's thigh, he felt like he had drunk half a caddy of strong liquor, dizzy, hot, but it felt amazing. Every subsequent scene felt like it had been covered with a warm yellow filter, clear yet hazy. When would the next time be? He looked down at his hands, then rolled out of bed. Today, Zhongting was coming. After finishing breakfast, Fang Tian tidied up the house a bit, then sat on the sofa to organize his thoughts. Su Wan had gone to work, leaving only him and the soon-to-arrive Dr. Zhang at home. Fang Tian forced himself to be on high alert. Zhongting was too sharp. When those peach blossom eyes scanned over him through her gold-rimmed glasses, it felt like being scanned from head to toe by an X-ray. He had to treat her like an enemy. Stay vigilant, keep his distance, and don't say a single word that shouldn't be said. Now, as long as he could endure Zhongting's 1-week observation and get the recovery certificate, he would be free to roam like a fish in the sea or a bird in the sky. Whether looking for a job or doing anything else, he wouldn't need to carry the label of a depression patient anymore. The weather in Gusu was as scorching as ever. It was only past 9 in the morning, but looking outside through the balcony's floor-to-ceiling windows, the sunlight had already bleached the floor tiles white. The air was distorted by heat waves into a transparent ripple, and the leaves hung limp and motionless. Fang Tian had originally wanted to go out and buy a watermelon to entertain Zhongting, but after taking one look at the scorching sun outside, he decisively abandoned the idea. That bad woman, why should she get watermelon? She can just sit there. At 10 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang right on time. Fang Tian glanced at the wall clock. She must have arrived at the door early and waited until exactly 10 o'clock to ring the bell. He took a deep breath, walked to the door, and said in as flat a tone as possible, "Coming." He opened the door. Then he froze in the doorway. Zhongting's attire today was completely different from what she wore at the hospital last time. She had swapped out her white coat and professional attire for an extremely simple summer outfit. A black printed t-shirt with a line of tiny white German letters on the front. Fang Tian only knew it was German, but couldn't understand what it said. The t-shirt was a slim fit style, the cotton fabric clinging softly to her body, outlining the full curves of her chest and her slender waistline clearly. The neckline was modest, a crew neck, with the lines of her collarbone extending from the edge of the collar, fair and distinct. On the bottom, she wore tight denim shorts that reached just to the middle of her thighs. Her height of nearly 175 centimeters made those ordinary denim shorts look exceptionally long on her legs. Her legs were straight and long, and her thighs looked a bit fuller than Su Wan's. Her calves were also the fleshy kind. Different from the shape of Su Wan's legs, but equally beautiful. She was wearing a pair of cyan sneakers. Her hair wasn't worn loose like last time, instead, it was tied loosely in a low ponytail with a black hair tie, hanging behind her shoulder. A few stray strands of hair clung to her temples, slightly damp from the heat. Her features were clean and fresh, yet those peach blossom eyes still radiated a natural, innate allure even without makeup. On the bridge of her nose, she still wore those vintage snake-bone gold-rimmed glasses, her gaze shifting behind the lenses. Even though she was dressed incomparably simpler than last time at the hospital, the visual effect of her standing at the door was in no way inferior to that white coat and shirt outfit. Instead, that casual, unforced beauty made one feel that there wasn't a single part of her that wasn't beautiful. She was carrying a suitcase in her right hand and a white plastic bag in her left. Inside the bag was a round, chilled watermelon, with beads of condensation still clinging to the rind. "Tian Tian, sorry to bother you." Zhongting spoke first, a perfectly measured smile on her face, her tone much warmer than it had been in the clinic last time. "Your godmother told me she's working today and said I should just come over directly. By the way, I brought a chilled watermelon, it's too hot today, just right for cooling off." She held the plastic bag forward, and the watermelon shifted slightly inside. Her attitude was so natural, as if she were visiting a friend's house rather than observing a patient. Fang Tian took the watermelon, his face expressionless, but a red warning signal lit up in his heart. When things are unusual, there must be something strange going on. She was too enthusiastic. However, her eyes still held that look of observation and appraisal. Although her facial expressions were well controlled, the angle of her smile, the warmth of her tone, the action of handing over the watermelon, everything was precisely calculated. But it was still unnatural. The slightly upturned corners of her mouth didn't synchronize with the muscles around her eyes. When those peach blossom eyes scanned him through the lenses, they still carried an imperceptible sense of scrutiny. "All right, Dr. Zhang, please come in. The shoes are in the shoe cabinet, please wear the red pair." Fang Tian's attitude wasn't exactly warm, it was polite but with a hint of deliberately maintained distance. He stepped aside to clear the doorway, took the watermelon, but didn't help with her luggage or get her slippers. He just pointed toward the shoe cabinet, then turned and carried the watermelon into the kitchen. Zhongting glanced at his back and smiled lightly. She lifted her carry-on suitcase over the threshold, changed into the red slippers, and walked inside, looking around the living room with unhurried movements. "Your home is decorated quite warmly. Did your godmother do this?" "Yeah, godmother did all of it." "Is that a pothose on the balcony?" "It's growing really well." Zhongting walked to the balcony door, clasped her hands behind her back, and bent over to look at the pothose plant. The sunlight hit her from the side, causing the hem of her t-shirt to lift slightly, revealing a small patch of her fair waist. Fang Tian came out of the kitchen, leaned against the door frame, and crossed his arms over his chest. He watched Zhongting's back as she looked around the living room, with only one thought in his mind. A woman who is not easy to deal with. Every word she said and every action she took now was not without purpose. Asking if godmother decorated it was to assess his ability to take care of himself. Looking at the pothose was to find a topic to bridge the distance. She even deliberately bent over with her back to him, revealing her full buttocks, to give him the impression that she had no guard up. Unfortunately, that trick didn't work on Fang Tian. In his past life, Fang Tian had seen too many self-righteous people and bad guys, and he had even interrogated spies. "Dr. Zhang, you can put your luggage in the bedroom first. You'll be sleeping in the room on the left side of the hallway, the one facing outward." "All right, thank you, Tian Tian." Zhang Ting straightened up and pulled her suitcase toward the hallway. As she passed by Fang Tian, she carried a refreshing citrus scent that was very pleasant to smell. For the next 2+ hours, Zhang Ting kept chatting idly with Fang Tian. Her tone was relaxed, her expression casual. Fang Tian answered politely, his attitude courteous but cold. The atmosphere between the two was like there was an invisible layer of plastic wrap separating them. Politeness was intact, but warmth was lacking. Fang Tian knew very well. She was using small talk to conduct a basic assessment. Gurgle. Fang Tian's stomach growled. Zhang Ting's eyebrows raised slightly, and her peach blossom eyes curved. "Are you hungry? Let's go out to eat? I'm not very familiar with this area, so you recommend somewhere?" Fang Tian glanced out the window. The sun was scorching, and the air was distorted by the heat. He decisively shook his head. "Let's cook. I don't want to go out, it's too hot. In this weather, you break into a sweat after just 2 steps outside. Cook." Zhang Ting's expression showed a rare crack of genuine reaction. The corners of her mouth turned down, and her eyebrows knitted slightly. "I don't know how to cook." Fang Tian looked at her in silence, his expression as if to say, "You're in your 30s and don't know how to cook." Zhang Ting clearly read his expression and quickly added, "Don't look at me like that. When I was abroad, a nanny did the cooking. After I came back, I ate at the cafeteria or ordered takeout occasionally." Her tone was a bit aggrieved, but she was very frank about it. The information about her not knowing how to cook was likely true, because her expression was finally no longer that meticulously calculated congeniality, but genuine embarrassment. "I wasn't asking you to. I'll cook." Fang Tian stood up and walked toward the kitchen. "But didn't you study abroad? Couldn't get used to Western food?" This question appeared to be about eating habits, but in reality, it was a subtle questioning of her previous answer. Couldn't get used to it? Pickled vegetables with sausages by the end. I was even dreaming about finding soy sauce. There was a sense of genuine complaint in Zhang Ting's tone. She stood up and followed Fang Tian to the kitchen doorway. Fang Tian took out the ingredients Su Wan had prepared in advance from the refrigerator. "Tian Tian, let me help you." Zhang Ting rolled up the sleeves of her t-shirt, revealing 2 fair arms, and walked over to Fang Tian, her tone sincere. "Although I can't cook, I can definitely help out. Washing vegetables, handing things over, carrying plates, I can do all of that." He shoved a bag of green vegetables into her hands. "Wash the vegetables. The sink is over there." "Roger that." Zhang Ting took the vegetables, the corners of her mouth curling up, and turned to the sink, nimbly turning on the faucet. The sound of running water splashed loudly as she rinsed the vegetables over and over in her hands. Her fingers were long and slender, and she was quite nimble as she rubbed the leaves of the vegetables. Chapter 28, Zhang Ting asleep. Fang Tian made 4 dishes. Shredded pork with green peppers, spicy chicken, mapo tofu, stir-fried greens with garlic, plus a bowl of seaweed and egg drop soup. They were all the most common home-cooked dishes, but when they were brought to the table, the aroma filled the entire living room. Sitting across the dining table, when Zhang Ting picked up her first chopstickful of shredded pork with green peppers and put it into her mouth, her peach blossom eyes widened slightly. She chewed twice, then twice more, and then looked at Fang Tian with a look of disbelief. "Did you really make this? Otherwise, a ghost made it?" Fang Tian scooped a bowl of rice and placed it in front of her, his tone flat. His attitude still couldn't be called warm, but he wasn't deliberately keeping his distance like he had this morning. Perhaps it was because the two of them had cooperated somewhat during the cooking process. Zhangting had indeed washed the vegetables quite seriously. Although a tiny bug hole was left on a leaf she had washed, overall, she was a qualified kitchen helper. Zhangting picked up another piece of tofu. The tender tofu trembled on the tips of her chopsticks. Upon entering her mouth, the numbing, spicy, fresh, and savory flavors exploded together. She lowered her head to glance at the rice in her bowl, and when she looked up at Fang Tian again, the professional scrutiny in her peach blossom eyes seemed to melt a little. I take back what I said earlier about your godmother working too hard to take care of you. If you cook every day, your godmother probably wouldn't even want you to move out. She cooks every day. I only eat. I only got a chance to touch the ladle today because she's not here. Fang Tian scooped a bowl of rice for himself as well, sat down, and began to eat. Zhangting did not speak again. She ate her meal quietly, chewing every bite very seriously. After finishing her first bowl, she hesitated for about 3 seconds, then stood up and went to the kitchen to get herself another half bowl. Fang Tian noticed this detail. He said nothing, but the corner of his mouth curved up almost imperceptibly. The thing a chef was most satisfied with was a guest eating an extra bowl of rice because of their cooking. After finishing the meal, Fang Tian cleared the dishes and chopsticks into the sink. Zhangting took the initiative to stand up to help wash the dishes, but Fang Tian stopped her. You're a guest, just sit. But you made lunch. So tonight, the dishwashing duty will be handed over to you. Zhangting was stunned for a moment, then the corners of her mouth curved up. She sat back on the sofa, a rare touch of genuine warmth in her tone. All right. I'll wash them tonight. Fang Tian gave the dishes a simple rinse, put them on the drying rack, wiped his hands dry, and walked back to the living room. Zhangting sat on the sofa, holding nothing in her hands. With one hand propped on the armrest of the sofa to support her chin, she tilted her head, her peach blossom eyes quietly looking at Fang Tian through her gold-rimmed glasses. The sunlight streamed in through the half-drawn curtains, casting a soft layer of light over her. Fang Tian, I'd like to discuss something with you. Her tone was frank yet respectful, somewhere between that of a colleague and a friend. Fang Tian sat at the other end of the sofa, a body's width apart, and nodded without speaking. This morning, and also that day in the clinic, I could feel that you were guarded against me. You feel that I'm an observer who came with a mission, so you'll cooperate with me, but you won't truly relax and get along with me. Am I right? Fang Tian did not deny it. His silence itself was the answer. Zhangting lowered her hand from her cheek, leaned forward slightly, and crossed her hands over her knees. Her posture was more relaxed than before, but her gaze was very serious. What I want to say is that this kind of interaction is actually not beneficial for this observation. What I need to assess is your true state of life, including your emotions, your social skills, and your daily rhythm. If you think I'm here to nitpick and record problems, you won't be able to show your true self in front of me. The final assessment results won't be truly objective either. She paused, pushed up her glasses, and added a layer of sincere confession to her tone. I admit, when I initially proposed coming to your home, there was indeed a bit of professional curiosity involved. But that's the instinct of every doctor. We still have a week to spend together. I'm not here to be an observer. I'm a friend who is temporarily staying at your house. Your godmother's friend. What do you think? After she finished speaking, she didn't rush Fang Tian for an answer. Instead, she leaned back against the sofa cushions, picked up the water cup on the coffee table, took a sip, and gave him some time to process. Fang Tian looked at her for a moment. The sunlight drew a soft outline on her profile. She was wearing that white t-shirt with German writing on it, red slippers on her feet, her hair a bit loose, and her low ponytail slightly crooked. At this moment, she indeed didn't look much like a researcher who had come to observe a lab rat. "All right." Fang Tian said a single word, then paused, and added, "But don't believe everything my godmother says too much either. The filter she views me through is 8,000 layers thick." The corner of Zhang Ting's mouth curled up slightly, and a hint of amusement flashed in her peach blossom eyes. "I've already felt that. Last time in the clinic, she said you make your bed in the morning, cook for yourself, and take the initiative to go out for walks. When she was praising you, I felt like she was praising a son who had won the National 3 Good Student Award. That's exactly how she praises me." Fang Tian also smiled, which was rare, and then stood up. "I'm going to take a nap. In this weather, you have to sleep. You should rest too. If I go out this afternoon, I'll call you." "Okay. Thanks." Fang Tian walked into the second bedroom, left the door ajar, and lay down on the bed. He stared at the ceiling, running over what Zhang Ting had just said in his mind. She did have a point. An interaction style filled with guardedness was bad for both her and him. Forget it. He would just treat her as a flatmate. He closed his eyes and slowly fell asleep to the soft humming of the air conditioner. After an unknown amount of time, Fang Tian woke up. He wasn't woken up by an alarm, but woke up naturally. The air conditioner was still blowing a cool breeze evenly. The bedroom curtains were tightly drawn, making the room dim and cool. Fang Tian checked his phone. It was 1:30 p.m. He had slept for about an hour. The second bedroom door was ajar, and the living room was exceptionally quiet. There was no sound of footsteps, no noise of rummaging through things, only the slight hum of the living room's air conditioner running continuously. Fang Tian pushed open the bedroom door and walked into the living room. Then he stopped in his tracks. Zhang Ting was still in the living room. She hadn't gone back to her own room to sleep. She was leaning sideways against the sofa armrest, fast asleep. Her head rested sideways on the cushion of the sofa armrest, one arm draped over the edge of the sofa, her fingers slightly curled. Her other arm lay across her lap, her palm facing upward and open. Her phone had slipped from her palm and fallen onto the sofa cushion, its screen still lit up with a half-read medical paper. She hadn't taken off those vintage snake-bone gold-rimmed glasses. The frame was slightly crooked, with one temple pressing against her temple, leaving a faint red mark. The nose pads resting on the bridge of her nose had also left two small indentations. She was covered with half of a sofa blanket, which she had probably pulled over unconsciously after falling asleep. It only covered her stomach, leaving her legs completely exposed. In her curled-up sitting position, those denim shorts had ridden up even further, leaving her thighs almost entirely exposed to the air. Her legs were slightly bent and crossed on the sofa cushion. The curve of her calves slender and smooth, her ankles translucent white. Her 10 toes were all very slender, coated with red nail polish, giving one an urge to hold them in one's hand and play with them. Sunlight spilled in through the gap in the half-open curtains, drawing a bright horizontal line across her body, landing right between her collarbone and the hollow of her neck. There was a small patch of fine sweat beads in the hollow of her collarbone, glistening in the sunlight. Her hair tie had loosened, and her low ponytail was nearly half unraveled, with a few stray strands of hair clinging to her cheeks and neck, rising and falling gently with her breathing. Her breathing was very light and even. Her lips were slightly parted, revealing a glimpse of pearly white teeth. Her lips were full and soft. Her chest rose and fell gently with her breathing, the full curves beneath her black German t-shirt slowly rising and falling with each breath. Standing by the sofa and looking at her, the first thought that popped into Fang Tian's head was, this person is so shrewd when she's awake, but she's quite quiet when she's asleep. She was indeed the kind of beauty who looked like she was shooting a photo book even while taking a nap. Then, the system's dialog box popped up. Faced with the sleeping Zhang Ting, Your choice is 1. Kiss her directly without saying a word. 2. Isn't this a classic adult movie plot? Please play the male lead of an adult movie and proceed with the action. 3. Directly slap her across the face and shout angrily, "Are you a pig? How can you sleep so much?" 4. Since the air conditioner is on, to prevent her from catching a cold, cover her with clothing or a blanket again. Fang Tian read through the 4 options one by one, the curve of his mouth shifting across several dimensions. He looked down at the delicate patch of cheek Zhang Ting had exposed, then glanced at system options 1 and 2. You dog system, you really are a dog. To think you want me to make a move on a sleeping woman. As for option 3, it meant he could go back to the psychiatry department to register for another appointment. He walked over to the sofa and stopped, bending down to gently pull the sofa blanket out from under her, carefully spreading it out to cover her from her chest down to below her knees. He tucked in the other half of her legs that had originally been left uncovered, wrapping them up tightly. His movements were very light and did not wake her. In her sleep, Zhang Ting seemed to feel the warmth of the blanket. Her body curled slightly deeper into the sofa, and she pulled the blanket up a bit. Her lips pursed slightly, and she fell back into a deep sleep. Chapter 29, Career Direction. Congratulations to the host for completing the option. Reward received, 1000 yuan in cash, which has been deposited into the bank card under your name. As expected. Choosing option 4 to provide the blanket, the reward was just as meager. However, Fang Tian was already mentally prepared. For a matter like covering Zhang Ting with a blanket, the system rewarding him 1000 yuan was already giving him face. But a thought suddenly flashed through Fang Tian's mind, and he sprang up from the recliner. Not right? He roared in his mind, the dog system, where is my continuous task reward? That continuous task regarding Su Wan. Massaging the neck, massaging the waist and legs. Massaging the side of the chest and inner thighs, and finally Su Wan helping him relieve. He had completed all 4 tasks without missing a single one. But the system hadn't even popped up a settlement notification until now. He almost forgot about this, letting the system skip the payment. The system remained silent as always. Fang Tian cursed in his head for over 10 minutes, bringing out every nasty word he could think of, but no dialogue box appeared. It was as quiet as if it had crashed. He was tired of cursing. He would curse next time. After calming down, he began to analyze. Every previous reward from the system had been issued instantly. Once an option was selected, he got it, it had never been delayed. Only this continuous task hadn't been settled. It might be related to the task mechanism. The system set a 48-hour time window, so it was highly likely that it would only settle collectively after the time window ended. Fine, he would wait until tomorrow night. If it didn't give him an explanation by then, he would settle the score with the system properly. Fang Tian leaned back on the recliner, looking at the living room ceiling, and began to ponder a more realistic problem. Career. He had been a programmer for half his life in his previous life, and in this life, he didn't want to work diligently in front of a computer again. Although he was full of passion for that profession, as time passed, passion turned into annoyance. Moreover, having transmigrated once, he had to try a different life. Working for others is impossible. Working is bitter, working is tiring, working just earns some pitiful money. He couldn't possibly work for others in this life. Then what could he do? Go straight to the end and save 30 years of detours. Be a security guard? That wasn't impossible. Squat in a high-end residential complex, look for female owners to farm attribute points every day. The work is leisurely and he could slack off. But the problem is that being a security guard is likely a long-term contract, and it's probably hard to find part-time work where you get paid by the day. He could work at most a few days a month, he couldn't just be idle for the rest of the time. Although the system was generous with money, the trigger mechanism of the dog system was unstable, and he needed to find many people who could stably trigger the mechanism. Like people such as Su Wan and Zhang Ting. Besides being a security guard, what else could he do? He flipped through the original owner's memories. Graduated from Jinghai University, a 985 university, majored in computer-related fields, with a solid programming foundation. The original owner wrote decent code and had received an excellent grade for his graduation project. If nothing unexpected happened, he would be an excellent programmer just like himself. Unfortunately, something happened before graduation, and he hadn't worked a single day. As he was thinking, a slight sound came from the sofa side. The muffled sound of the sofa cushion rebounding after being pressed, the sound of a foot stepping on the floor, and then Zhang Ting's slightly hoarse voice from just waking up, Sorry, Tian Tian. I fell asleep on the sofa. Fang Tian glanced at Zhang Ting. Zhang Ting had already sat up, the blanket slid from her shoulders to her legs, her hair half loose, and a hair tie hanging precariously at the end of her hair. She was using her fingers to tuck the loose hair behind her ears, her gold-rimmed glasses were crooked, the marks of the nose pads were still on her nose bridge, and there were a few shallow lines on her cheeks pressed by the sofa cushion. Her peach blossom eyes were still covered with a layer of mist from just waking up, and her eyelashes were stained with a bit of moisture from yawning. She looked down at the blanket on her body, looked up at Fang Tian, and the mist in her peach blossom eyes was dispersed a little by some subtle emotion. She didn't say thank you. But that expression had already said it. What are you thinking about? Zhang Ting straightened her glasses, the sleepiness in her voice hadn't fully dissipated, and it was a few degrees softer than usual. She stood up and folded the blanket, placing it on the sofa armrest. Her movements were natural and fluid. As she raised her hands, the hem of her t-shirt lifted slightly, revealing a small section of blindingly white waist, only to be covered by the hem in the next second. Fang Tian withdrew his gaze and sat down next to her, thinking about what job to look for. He had figured it out. His biggest secret. Soul transmigration plus the system. As long as he didn't say anything, no one in the world would know. Even if Zhang Ting was suspicious, it was useless, she couldn't find evidence. She couldn't slice him up for research, could she? So being a bit more honest with her was actually safer. The more he hid things, the more she would feel something was wrong with him. Oh! Zhang Ting's spirits were clearly lifted by this topic. She sat next to Fang Tian, her body leaning forward slightly, her hands crossed and placed on her knees. It was that standard listening posture again, but this time there was a kind of relaxation like friends chatting, her knees slightly turned towards Fang Tian. I've seen your basic information, you are a top student from Jinghai University. Although you've been out of the workforce for 2 years, the Jinghai brand is still there, so it's not hard to find a job. Her tone had a natural affirmation. As she spoke, she tilted her head and glanced at Fang Tian, her peach blossom eyes carrying a trace of serious, inquisitive spirit. Do you have any general ideas? Zhang Ting obviously wanted to continue chatting about this topic. As she spoke, she subconsciously used her right index finger to twirl a lock of loose hair, twirling it twice then letting go, then twirling it again, a completely unconscious little action, but when done by her, it carried a kind of casual beauty. I probably won't look for a full-time job at the beginning. Current work intensity is quite high, and for my situation, it's more appropriate to take it one step at a time. I'll start with part-time work. First, adapt to the rhythm, then see what direction suits me. Fang Tian leaned back against the sofa, his tone unusually peaceful. It felt like he was just chatting with an ordinary friend. Your idea is quite good. Zhang Ting nodded, supporting her chin with her thumb and index finger, her fingertips lightly tapping on her cheek. Rushing into a full-time job at the start is indeed not a good choice. Especially for someone who has been out of the workforce for 2 years, the change in rhythm is too drastic and would instead affect your state. Part-time work is a very good transition strategy. When she spoke, there was a light in those peach blossom eyes that truly showed she was thinking about the problem. The gaze behind her lenses flickered slightly as her thoughts flowed, as if she was quickly searching for something in her mind. Then have you thought about what kind of part-time job? Not yet. Fang Tian shook his head. He didn't voice the idea of being a security guard. Telling a chief physician who returned from studying in Germany that he wanted to guard the gate of a high-end residential complex, Zhongting would probably scan him from head to toe with that X-ray gaze and then start writing a diagnostic report. Zhongting took her hand down from her chin, leaned back slightly, and tapped her right fingers lightly on the sofa armrest twice. Then she spoke, her speaking speed slightly faster than before, but her pronunciation remained clear. I have a few directions for you to consider. First, writing and content creation. You graduated from Jinghai University, your writing foundation won't be bad. Official accounts, short video scripts, copywriting planning. The threshold for these part-time jobs isn't high, but the income is decent. It can be operated entirely online. Second, design and editing. Making posters, image retouching, video editing. There are many introductory tutorials for these skills online, and once learned, taking orders is flexible. When she finished the first 2 points, the fingers she held up changed from 2 to 3. Her fingers were long and slender, with distinct knuckles, and her nails were neatly trimmed. Third, programming and data analysis. Your major is computer-related. Part-time jobs in this direction have the highest return rate. Web scraping, spreadsheet automation, many program development. A single project can be from thousands to tens of thousands. Moreover, there's no need to work in an office, online delivery is fine. Fourth, tutoring. Knowledge output type, high hourly wage, controllable contact groups, and it can also exercise social skills. Fifth, coffee shop waiter or bookstore clerk. Not for making money, but for contacting people and establishing a daily social rhythm. After she finished the 5 directions, her fingers changed from 3 to 5. Then she put her hands down, tilted her head slightly to look at Fang Tian, and the precarious hair tie at the end of her hair finally couldn't hold on and fell into the gap of the sofa. She glanced down but didn't go to pick it up, simply letting her hair loose completely. A head of thick black hair spread over her shoulders, making her features look even more stunning than when she had a ponytail. Fang Tian looked at her, only one thought in his mind. This woman is truly impressive. From waking up until now, it hadn't been more than a few minutes, and for the problem that was still spinning in his head, she had already given 5 logical, layered, and highly actionable plans. Each plan took into account his academic background, time out of the workforce, and physical condition. I'll think about it. Fang Tian nodded, his tone carrying sincere approval. Your suggestions are all very good. He moved his gaze away from Zhongting and looked towards the balcony. The wind had picked up at some point, blowing the curtains to bulge slightly, taking away the heat of the entire day. The sunlight was not as scorching as at noon, having converged into a gentle pale gold. Let's go out for a walk. Fang Tian stood up. Okay. Sure. Zhongting's eyes brightened. She could feel that Fang Tian was completely no longer guarding against her like he was in the morning. Fang Tian was in a natural state of relaxation. This state made her feel that this visit for observation might really be able to make some meaningful evaluations. The two changed their shoes and went out. Fang Tian walked in front, Zhongting followed behind, and when going down the stairs, her sneakers stepped out a brisk rhythm on the steps. Her hair hadn't been retied in time, just left loose, with black hair draped behind her shoulders, fluttering slightly with every step she took. After leaving the residential complex, the wind outside was very comfortable. The leaves of the street trees rustled in the wind, and the air held the scent of soil that had just been watered and the fragrance of gardenias wafting from somewhere unknown. There were neither too many nor too few pedestrians on the road, a few neighbors walking their dogs passed by slowly, and a child on a scooter zoomed past from the side. Fang Tian was just about to ask Zhangting if she had encountered any bizarre cases while studying abroad when a clear voice suddenly came from behind. Fang Tian. He turned back. An old acquaintance. Zheng Xiaoun, the school beauty of Jinghai University. Brothers who have read up to here, every one of your gifts, urging for more, and comments are very important to me. Chapter 30, The Campus Beauty, Zheng Xiaoun. Zheng Xiaoun is the kind of girl who makes people remember her at a single glance. 23 years old, exactly the best age, she is the recognized campus beauty of Jinghai University. Using the word pretty on others might be polite, but it's not enough for her. Her face is a type of beauty with high distinctiveness, her features are so exquisite they look like they were painted, yet they combine to create a sense of vibrant life. The most striking thing is her eyes. The corners of her eyes tilt slightly upward, not the classical arc of phoenix eyes, but with a playful sense of soaring, as if hiding a smile at any moment. Her pupils are lighter in color than ordinary people, amber-colored, reflecting a honey-like, translucent light in the sun, and when she looks at someone, it seems to carry a little flame of its own. There is a small tear mole below her right eye, positioned precisely above the cheekbone, neither too far nor too near, as if someone had gently dotted it with a pen tip. This mole adds a layer of indescribable flavor to her face, beyond just being bright and beautiful. When she smiles, her whole face lights up. Her teeth are white and neat, her lips are a full cherry pink, the upper lip is thin, the lower lip is slightly pouted, and the corners of her mouth are naturally turned up, so even when she isn't smiling, it looks like she is brewing a smile. The tip of her nose is petite and slightly upturned, viewed from the side, the lines are lively and playful. She isn't short, with a net height of 1.68 meters, and stepping into a pair of white sandals makes her look even more tall and slender. Today she is wearing an extremely short denim skirt, the light blue denim fabric is washed until it's slightly whitened, and the hem is so short it barely passes the base of her thighs. A slightly larger movement would reveal the edge of her safety shorts. A thin brown leather belt is tied around her waist, cinching it in extremely tightly. Her upper body is a white, short-cut camisole, with a low neckline that just happens to reveal her collarbones and a patch of fair chest. Her chest is petite and perky, like two inverted celadone bowls, pushing out a clean and sharp curve beneath the thin fabric. The hem of the camisole is short, just revealing a section of flat, toned waist, with mermaid lines faintly visible on both sides. Her navel is small and round, like a shallow vortex embedded in the center of her smooth lower abdomen. The buttocks wrapped by the denim skirt are firm and perky, a youthful fullness with elasticity, and the frayed hem of the skirt sits right at the most curved point. When she walks, the hem of the skirt sways gently, revealing a faint tan line around the base of her thighs. Her legs are very long, with excessively good proportions. From thigh to calf, the lines are smooth, with a thin layer of muscle amidst the slenderness. Her kneecaps are delicate, her ankles are slender, and her skin is a healthy wheat color, glowing with a thin layer of luster. On her feet, she wears white sandals, no socks, revealing the honey-colored top of her feet. Her 10 toes are long and slender, painted with bright orange nail polish, like a row of little suns embedded at her toes. She stood there under the pale golden sunlight, her whole body glowing. Fang Tian was stunned for about half a second. How did she recognize him? This was the first thought that flooded into Fang Tian's mind. The last time he met Zheng Xiaoun was 2 years ago. At that time, he had just suffered a family tragedy, and although it hadn't yet developed into depression, his emotions and state were very poor. Zheng Xiaoun, as a colleague in the student union and a good friend, had come to see him. The two of them had worked together in the external liaison department of the school student union during their freshman, sophomore, and junior years. In their freshman year, they were both junior staff. In their sophomore year, Fang Tian became the vice minister, and Zheng Xiaoun was the minister. The two of them sat in a cafe next to the school and chatted for a long time. Zheng Xiaoun tried very hard to comfort him. But for Fang Tian, it was of little avail. A few days later, he was picked up by Su Wan, and he stayed indoors, completely cutting off all contact with people and events from the past. Zheng Xiaoun had looked for him on Yuxin several times, but he hadn't replied to a single one. 2 years without seeing her, he had lost over 20 pounds, and his temperament had completely changed. He had transformed from a sunny young man into the calm and reserved person he was now. She had actually recognized him at a glance. The appearance of the system interrupted Fang Tian's memories. Facing the enthusiastic greeting of the former campus beauty, "What is your choice?" 1. Pretend you didn't see her and walk away. 2. Grab Zhongting, who is next to you, and laugh, "Hello campus beauty, this is my wife." 3. Shout at her, "You have no idea why I didn't reply to your Yuxin? Still saying hello? Go find somewhere cool to stay." 4. Express goodwill and rekindle the old friendship. 5. Respond with equal enthusiasm, perform a side flip in front of her, and reach out to invite her to do a side flip with you. Even though he was already used to the system's unexpectedness, Fang Tian was still choked by option 5. A side flip. The dog system really pulls out all the stops to cause trouble. The only options he could actually choose were 1 and 4. Options 2 and 3 were too inhumane. One would offend Zhongting, and the other would be returning kindness with ingratitude to someone who cared about him. But he didn't want to choose one either. Zheng Xiaoun hadn't done anything wrong, there was no need to pretend not to know her. So Fang Tian also raised his hand, waved it simply, and greeted her with a natural expression, "Xiaoun, long time no see. I didn't expect you to still be able to recognize me." Zheng Xiaoun walked over quickly, her ember eyes scanning him up and down, and then she spoke her first sentence. This sentence made Zhongting, who was standing next to Fang Tian, unable to hold it in, and she burst out laughing. "Fang Tian, is this your girlfriend? She's so pretty." When Zheng Xiaoun said this, her eyes jumped from Fang Tian to Zhongting and back, that tear mole flying up along with the corners of her eyebrows, her tone sincere as if she were genuinely complimenting her. It could only be said that she was worthy of being the minister of the external liaison department. With this one sentence, all 3 people present knew it wasn't a fact. But no one present was unhappy. Zhongting was so flattered by that "she's so pretty" that the corners of her mouth curled upwards, and Fang Tian was also left speechless by her social skills, just opening her mouth and saying whatever came to mind. In this world, combinations of younger men and older women weren't non-existent, just rare. Just on the way out of the residential complex, Fang Tian had seen a middle-aged man with a head as bald as a programmer, accompanied by a young, attractive woman. Combinations of older men and younger women were a dime a dozen. Zhongting reined in her smile and waved her hand to explain, "I am not Fang Tian's girlfriend, I am a friend of his godmother." "Hello there." "Ah. Hello, sister. You look so pretty and young, you look about the same age as me." Zheng Xiaoun covered her mouth in surprise, her ember eyes wide open, that tear mole falling exactly on the most vivid spot of her surprised expression. Zhongting's peach blossom eyes curved at being called sister. Being told you look about the same age as a 23-year-old girl when you are 35 is something that would make anyone happy. "Hello, my name is Zhongting, I consider myself a friend of Fang Tian's." "You call him Fang Tian, so you must be his classmate." Zhongting took the initiative to reach out, and Zheng Xiaoun reached out to shake it. The sight of the two beauties standing together shaking hands was quite pleasing to the eye. One was an intellectual mature woman with shoulder-length layered hair, a white t-shirt, and denim shorts, and the other was a bright young girl in a denim skirt and camisole, like two sketches in different styles but both beautiful under the pale golden sunset. Pretty much. My name is Zheng Xiaoun, I'm his college classmate, and also his former colleague in the external liaison department of the student union. He was very useful when he was my vice minister. When saying the words very useful, Zheng Xiaoun winked at Fang Tian, her ember pupils flashing with a cunning light in the sunset. Congratulations to the host for completing the option, reward obtained, attribute points +1, 2000 yuan in cash. Has been deposited into the bank card under your name. Fang Tian stood on the side watching the two women go from shaking hands to introducing themselves to exchanging yukes and contacts, unable to get a word in. He suddenly felt that the decision to go out this afternoon might have been a mistake. Are you guys out shopping? There's a newly opened dessert shop nearby, their mango pomelo sago is amazing. Do you want to go together? My treat. Zheng Xiaoun shook the bubble tea cup in her hand, the ice cubes clinking against the wall of the cup. When she spoke, her body leaned forward slightly, the neckline of her camisole swaying, and the fine beads of sweat on her collarbone glistening in the sunlight. Fang Tian and Zhang Ting looked at each other. Are you going? Fang Tian asked Zhang Ting. He didn't actually have much interest in desserts, but Zheng Xiaoun's suggestion was indeed a good opening for a reunion. Then I'll trouble you to lead the way. Zhang Ting smiled at Zheng Xiaoun, her tone polite but also quite light-hearted. Zheng Xiaoun walked in front to lead the way, the hem of her denim skirt swaying gently with her steps, bringing up a faint breeze. Fang Tian and Zhang Ting followed side by side. The evening breeze blew over with the slightly salty water vapor from the river, causing the leaves of the French plane trees by the road to rustle. How do you two know each other? Zheng Xiaoun asked the question most suitable for teasing straight to the point. Fang Tian didn't make a sound. Zhang Ting smiled, her tone flat, I am a doctor, he is my patient. It's that simple. Patient. Depression follow-up. But he's already almost better. Zheng Xiaoun stopped in her tracks, turned around, and looked at Fang Tian. The sunset spread a large expanse of golden-red clouds behind her, bathing her entire face in warmth. Her lips moved, and then she smiled. The corners of her mouth lifted high, her ember eyes shining like two lamps. As long as you're better. No wonder you didn't reply to my messages for 2 years, turns out you were busy in secret. I forgive you. She finished speaking and turned to continue leading the way, her sandals slapping on the concrete road, her ponytail swinging a lively arc behind her head. Fang Tian looked at her back, and a corner of his heart was gently nudged by something. Zheng Xiaoun was still that same Zheng Xiaoun.